it's Crystal from Adventuring with Crystal. This week I'd like to talk about a book I've read recently. It's called Reviving Ophelia, Saving the Selves of Adolescent Girls by Mary Pipher. I am the mom of two adolescent girls, and through all of my life I've always thought if there's a book about it, then I want to read it because that's how I learn to be better. My husband always makes fun of me because anytime I want to learn something, I'm like, let me pick up a book and read about it. I've been reading several books, and this one was a gem in many ways. Not because it is necessarily a guidebook that's going to tell you exactly how to relate to your girls, but for me, it brought to light a lot of fears that I had and opened up a way of looking at them differently. It's not an easy read. I listened to it and not read it, and it took me forever, probably 3 or 4 checkouts from the library because it was kind of difficult to read. A lot of the vignettes are stark and scary, and they tell the story of what our girls really have to go through. The book was originally written in the 90s, and I read the updated version that came out in 2019. And there were some really hopeful parts of the book. In fact, that was the biggest piece that I took away from the book was that, first of all, the pendulum had swung way far over to one side in the 90s, and girls were really getting into things. I was a girl in the 90s, and I don't quite remember things being as bad as the book made them out to be. And though I was maybe an anomaly. I think my mom would even say that I was a pretty easygoing teen. I wasn't into drugs and alcohol and sex like a lot of the girls in the book were because they were rebelling against a society that was just squeezing their souls. And in the 2019 edition, she talks about how the pendulum is kind of swinging back with the caveat that girls are being disconnected in different ways now because of social media. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But it was so hopeful to hear that things aren't as bad as they were for girls. A lot has happened in the past. I'd say even maybe 5 to 10 years that has really opened up the society for girls to be more accepting of themselves, for society to be more accepting of them. There's always going to be kind of the bikini complex and the patriarchy and these things going on, but girls have such a medium for being able to work within that. And to me, that's super hopeful. The other thing that brought me hope was that in almost all of the stories that were brought to the table, it was connection that helped the girls get past whatever it is, whether it was abuse of some sort, bullying, if it was just anxiety and things going on just from the society around them. It was connection. Their parents may have felt like they weren't doing the greatest job, but they recognized that something was not right with their girls. Or maybe it was a teacher or someone else who was really there for the girls, but it was always a connection that was made that helped the girl find her way to therapy and then fix or work towards fixing what was wrong. And that was what brought me the most hope. It didn't seem like there was any one way of parenting that made a girl have a great childhood and adolescence or made them have a really terrible childhood and adolescence. I mean, we'll take out the outliers of things that were really, really bad. But in the day to day, the small screw ups, the fights and the yelling and the grounding and the this and that and the other wasn't really a factor as much because often it meant that the parent was in communication with the girl, and that tension was actually needed and necessary. It was when there was no connection that the problem was really happening. And that made me feel really great. It made me feel like, okay, maybe I'm not doing such a terrible job as a parent. And it also made me think about the times that I try to make connection happen and how I have found that when we do something new together, whether it be a new coffee shop or going to a new restaurant, trying out a new park when they were little, or going on big trips to immerse ourselves in other cultures. Connection happens easier when we're out of our norm, when we break free of that habit loop and the ego structure that keeps us in a really rigid role. I am parent, you are child, I know, and I must teach you, and you must listen. When we go someplace new and experience new things, those roles kind of get erased because we're all on equal playing ground. And I've mentioned this in many of my blog posts and videos before, where it's really important for us to break out of that habit loop and start something new, especially with those that we want to connect with. Because in those moments, we find new avenues of connecting that we didn't know of before. And that's why I love my job and love travel, is that I do get the opportunity to help connection happen, whether it's between couples, with friends and families, with siblings. These are the moments that I really cherish. It's not just about getting them someplace and getting them into the museum that they wanted to. It's really about what happens along the way, what connections are going to be forged. And often it's when things aren't going great that the connection is going to be best. I bet that you have traveled, and your stories that you remember the most are when you were stuck at the airport, or the hotel was really bad, or something got canceled and you had to pivot, or it started raining when it wasn't supposed to rain. Those really are the moments that we're all together, and it's almost like we're in the trenches. We have to do this, and we're forming that bond. And that's why I really love travel for families with adolescents. And there is a hidden extra in that if you are someplace without a cell service, then the social media thing is moot. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And that's another wonderful thing. When we travel internationally, we don't turn on the service for the girls. It is a Wi-Fi only unless it's an emergency, and for us too. And that takes away that level of, okay, I'm on social media and I'm connected but not really connected. Now you really have to connect and converse and discuss and look around and see what's going on. And those are wonderful, wonderful experiences that you'll have when you travel. If you'd like to discuss more about adolescence, I am always happy to chat. Or if you would like to talk about travel plans that you have or that you're dreaming about, book a discovery call with me. The link is in the notes below, and I would love to discuss that with you.